seeking out shipwrecks today on Fortitude through Stoicism, and this is my 365-day journey of implementing the ancient philosophy of Stoicism into the life of this modern masculine man. And by shipwrecks, we're not necessarily talking about people. The quote by Seneca: "I was shipwrecked before I even boarded. The journey showed me this, how much of what we have is unnecessary, and how easily we can decide to rid ourselves of these things whenever it's necessary, never suffering the loss." So in just a quote, contextually, there's a lot of ways to look at this. And the point that Ryan Holiday is making in the Daily Stoic is he uses Zeno as the example. Now, Zeno is considered to be the founder of Stoicism. As story goes, he was originally a merchant before he was a philosopher. And on a voyage between Phoenicia and somewhere in Greece, his ship sank with all of its cargo. Zeno ended up in Athens. And while at a bookstore there, he was introduced to some of the teachings of Socrates and later another Athenian philosopher named Crates. These influences drastically changed his life, leading him to develop the thinking and principles that we now know as Stoicism, essentially. Now, as legend goes, according to Diogenes, he joked that Zeno once said that, "Now I have suffered shipwreck, I am finally on a good journey." And another one said that, "You've done well, Fortune, driving me thus to philosophy." So the Stoics aren't being hypothetical when they say we ought to act in reverse clause, which means there's always some silver lining in unfortunate events. I use the Super Bowl as an example. So here's where I'm going to go with this. I'm going to take this into possessions, right? Because the more things that we lose, right, that we really once held as important, really actually give us a sense of freedom. And now there are many ancient philosophers, and Diogenes is one of them, who really believed that true freedom only came from giving up all your possessions, because in essence, you become a slave to your possessions. Think about this, right? I currently don't have a Harley Davidson. I sold all three of them before I left New York for Florida. When you have a Harley Davidson, you have insurance, you have a title, you have to store it someplace, you have to keep it on a battery tender unless you want to take the battery. I mean, there's all kinds of maintenance things that you have to do just to have that thing. And so for me, I've been wrestling with it, and the reason why I haven't bought a new Harley since I've been out in Florida is really Stoicism. Truthfully. So what they're saying here is, and what I'm taking from this, how much of what we have is unnecessary. So I consider myself, unlike a lot of people, because I move quite a bit, so it's easy for me. My furniture, I got on Facebook Marketplace, really because the wait time at furniture stores in Florida is ridiculous. I was like, screw this, one on Facebook Marketplace, and I realized it was fraction of the cost, ton of stuff everywhere. So that's what I did. I bought furniture off Facebook Marketplace. But really, I don't have things. I mean, like, I can throw all my things away. I have desk and monitors and stuff, but like none of it's important to me, right? So could I rid myself of these things? I will tell you, in hindsight, I had a massive book collection. It was over 250 books that I'd read, leadership, personal development, you name it. I had probably 50 of the John C. Maxwell leadership books. And I just got sick and tired of carrying those things from place to place. And in the middle of a move, I said, you know what? I'm going to shed this. And I just threw it on a dumpster. I don't believe in regret. But the lesson I learned is I'm never going to throw away another book again. I would rather give that book to somebody who's going to read it, right, as a gift. But a lot of my books, I go back to because I'll remember a thing, a golden nugget somewhere, or someone will ask me for a great book and I'll be able to reference it. So it is like a backup to the memory bank. So in the sense where we're talking about seeking shipwrecks, meaning seeking failure before we even begin the journey, that's not where I go with this. That's not where I go with this. Where I go with this is in the meaning that I love the positive spin on something, because no matter what happens, there's always some kind of silver line. There's always some kind of opportunity. Once you train your mind to see those things, you don't see problems anymore. You'll hear me all the time. There's no such thing as problems. There's merely an opportunity for a solution. I don't believe in problems. I believe in opportunities. And that's been ingrained in my brain now for 20 years. That's a quote. It's my quote. There are no such things as problems. It's merely an opportunity for a solution. Going back to 2002, 2003. And that's truth. Because again, a thing is a thing. If we're calling it a problem, we're putting a negative perception on it. Again, these are the lessons of Stoicism. I would have never looked at those things like that. But from a positive standpoint, that's how I look at things, as an opportunity, a growth opportunity, solution. Because once you figure out a solution to something, there's always someone that's willing to pay you for that same solution, right? I mean, that's the truth. That's what coaching or consulting is. Once you've been able to go from one place to another, or take something from one place to another, or do a thing, other people need that thing done, so it's easier to go off of the knowledge of someone who's walked the same path, right? So, for me personally, I'm looking at today's lesson as I don't have anything in my life that I can't shed minus my character. Like, that's what it all comes down to. Because everything else is just smoke and noise. I can uproot myself, go to anywhere else in the world, transplant myself, and again, I can flourish, right? Because of me, my character, who I am, what I can do. This, monitors, furniture, none of this stuff. Actually, I really like my cross. That's a tough one. I would donate that actually to a club because that one's custom built. It's actually really gorgeous. Would not throw that away. But it's not something that would hold me back, right? It's not roots, as I call them. I looked at like Harley Davidson as roots. Like, these are things. I have to deal with these things. And so what I've done the last couple of years, I've cut away the roots. I am completely nomadic. It's fun. And on that, I'm out of here.